Welcome back to the Midnight Narrator, where seemingly idyllic communities hide dark secrets and the most innocuous rules mask unspeakable horrors. Tonight, we journey to Serenity Glade, a planned community where tranquility comes at a terrifying price. Prepare to confront a custom that forbids outward expressions of mirth after twilight, a custom enforced by something beyond human comprehension. Join me as we unravel the chilling story of the Gloaming. Turn down the lights, silence your laughter, and listen as we explore the darkness that lurks just beyond the edge of perception. My spouse and I moved into the planned community of Serenity Glade a week ago. One of those picture-perfect developments, vibrant in the brochures, but strangely sterile in reality. After only 2 days, we relocated to a nearby motel, our temporary refuge. We're now focused on selling the property and finding a new home. Anywhere but Serenity Glade. That's the only requirement. The unsettling nature of that place only revealed itself after a community custom was broken. No outward expressions of levity after the gloaming. "Love," I called, a small smile playing on my lips. "Yes?" my spouse responded from the study. "Come and see this," I said. Elara entered the main room, a look of mild curiosity on her face. She affectionately touched my arm. "What's caught your attention, Kael?" she asked. "This," I said, holding up a printed notice I'd found near the entryway. Elara leaned closer and read it with me. "To Kael and Elara, a warm welcome from the Serenity Glade Stewardship Council. We are delighted to welcome you to our carefully cultivated community. You've likely already encountered Mr. Hawthorne, our community liaison, and are therefore aware of our commitment to maintaining a tranquil and harmonious environment. This extends beyond manicured lawns and pristine residences. It is the collective spirit of our residents that truly defines Serenity Glade. Regular gatherings such as our seasonal celebrations and communal viewings foster a strong sense of belonging. However, it is imperative that we inform you of a particular custom observed by all residents. No outward expressions of levity are permitted after the gloaming. This does not pertain to ambient sound levels. We understand residents will engage in various activities including listening to audio, watching visual media, or engaging in conversation. Background sounds are a natural part of daily life. However, outward expressions of levity, encompassing audible laughter and similar displays of mirth, are strictly observed between the setting and rising of the sun in Serenity Glade. Defining the gloaming. There is no precise moment when the custom takes effect. The transition between daylight and darkness varies throughout the year. We understand this may create ambiguity. For your guidance, Mr. and Ms. Thorne, we advise refraining from any outward expressions of levity once the daylight begins to wane and the sun descends towards the horizon. This custom is not enforced through conventional means. It is not enforced by the Stewardship Council. Beyond this, there are no other specific regulations. You have reviewed and agreed to the community covenants. You understand our operating principles. Simply observe this custom regarding expressions of levity after the gloaming. "I told you I wasn't keen on this place," my spouse said, a hint of concern in her voice. "No expressions of mirth after twilight? It sounds like some kind of strange decree." "I really dislike moving," I sighed. "There's always something the agent fails to mention. Some hidden clause with every seemingly perfect property. There was the faulty plumbing in the first place, the electrical issues in the second, the structural instability in the third," Elara listed. "But I thought we were past such issues, Kael. I thought investing in a residence of this caliber would prevent these kinds of problems." "I know," I said. "And this is unlike any previous issue because it is not something we can simply fix," Elara pointed out. "Of course we can. We'll become paragons of solemnity," I said dryly, pulling her into a brief embrace. "For there is no levity in Serenity Glade. This is a place of quiet contemplation. Go, my dear, and prepare some refreshments." My spouse offered a forced smile. "I suppose there's little risk of excessive levity with you around." I could see Elara wanted to laugh. I felt the same urge. But despite our attempts at humor, we were both drawn to the fading light outside. We were both thinking the same thing. It would be foolish to disregard the custom, at least for the first night. I sensed Elara's unease mirrored my own. It felt like more than just restrictive community oversight. Given their apparent laxity on other matters, this single custom was deeply unsettling. Why expressions of mirth? Why single out the sound of joy? I was too exhausted to fully process the notice, deciding to contact the head of the Stewardship Council in the morning. I placed the call as soon as I awoke. Kael Thorne, it's wonderful to hear from you, a voice greeted me cheerfully. How was your first night in Serenity Glade? It was uneventful, I replied cautiously. I'm calling regarding the welcome notice. Ah, I see. Did everything make sense? The voice asked warmly. I frowned before remembering they couldn't see me. Well, yes and no. It was fairly clear. But one aspect caused us some confusion. The custom regarding expressions of levity. The voice didn't falter, the cheerful tone unwavering. Yes, no expressions of mirth after the gloaming. I explained how that is interpreted. There is no precise cutoff, do you understand? I sighed. It's not the timing I'm concerned about. It's the nature of the custom itself. Does it not seem a bit extreme? I'd understand something like quiet hours after a certain time, but a custom about not expressing mirth after twilight seems strangely specific, and I don't understand the reason for it. I don't see why laughter would be considered more disruptive than other sounds. I paused, but the voice remained silent, so I continued. Furthermore, as you stated, twilight arrives early during certain seasons. Are you seriously suggesting that we wouldn't be able to enjoy ourselves with family after a certain hour? Not at all, Mr. Thorne. Enjoy yourselves as you wish, throughout the daylight hours, the voice exclaimed as if shocked by my suggestion. I'm simply stating that expressions of mirth should be avoided after the gloaming, until the sun rises once more, when it can hear more clearly. I grumbled. I must express my frustration at learning of this custom after finalizing the purchase. Did you not discuss Serenity Glade's customs with the representative before acquiring the property, Mr. Thorne? The voice inquired. Yes, I replied sharply. I agreed to the community covenants and there was no mention of this custom. I've reviewed them again. Therefore, this isn't legally enforceable. You are entirely correct, Mr. Thorne. It is not legally enforceable, the voice confirmed. I paused. Right, so. Did I mention anything about a potential breach of our agreement? The voice interrupted. Did I mention the consequences of disregarding the custom? Did I mention, for instance, any repercussions should you fail to observe it? Well, no, I admitted. But what's the point of having a custom that cannot be enforced? As I mentioned in the notice, Mr. Thorne, I am not the one who enforces it, the voice replied, lowering in volume. The Stewardship Council did not originate this custom. We simply inform. I see, I muttered, growing tired of the cheerful tone. So what would happen if my spouse or I were to express mirth after twilight? For the first time, the voice hesitated. A longer pause than before. It was the only sign of genuine emotion. This is a truly remarkable community, Mr. Thorne, the voice said somberly. The residents of Serenity Glade lead tranquil lives, and I sincerely hope you and Elara will join them. But we have all relinquished something for this tranquility, this security from the outside world, and that something is outward expressions of levity, Mr. Thorne. Only during the hours of darkness, when it can hear more clearly. That's not an answer, I insisted. What is the consequence? I wish you had known the few unfortunate individuals who discovered the answer, the voice replied coldly. If you had, you wouldn't be asking. You wouldn't dare express mirth again. The voice abruptly ended the call, leaving me in my study for the rest of the day. I ignored messages. I remained motionless. It may seem extreme, but it wouldn't if you had heard that conversation. If you had lived in Serenity Glade for even 2 days. We certainly didn't stay after what happened on the second night. I was roused from my thoughts, which must have consumed hours, around 9 in the evening. Elara had returned from her work. The sound of the door seemed to jolt me back to reality, but it didn't alleviate my unease. I didn't dismiss the custom as mere community overreach. No, I believed the voice. I believed something terrible would occur if we expressed mirth. I had no idea what that something might be, but I wasn't going to wait for an explanation. I wanted to leave. I wanted us to find temporary lodging and address everything else later. Kael, Elara called. I stumbled out of the study, wondering at my own reaction, wondering why my heart was racing. It was just a power-hungry administrator, I told myself. I should consult legal counsel, discuss this arbitrary custom. That was the logical part of my mind. But the other part, driven by a deep unease, told me to disregard logic, to heed the dread in my heart, the dread that urged me to take Elara away from Serenity Glade. By the time I reached the main room, I was breathing heavily. Love, My eyes widened. Elara wasn't alone. Her colleague, Lyra, stood beside her. Lyra wore a cheerful expression. Sorry, it's been a hectic day, Elara said, walking over and briefly touching my arm. I'm just lending Lyra a spare jacket. She has an outing planned. I won't be a moment, Kael, Lyra assured me. I followed Elara upstairs, lowering my voice. Love, I whispered. I spoke with the council representative. Something is very wrong with this place. What do you mean? Elara replied as we reached the upper level. Did you mention the custom wasn't in the signed agreement? Yes, I said. They admitted it isn't an official rule. Nothing legally binding. Good, Elara smiled. Problem solved. No, I shook my head. It isn't solved. They said the custom is observed by... They didn't say who. They just said unsettling things, Elara. Said others had learned the consequence. It was a warning. Or a threat. My spouse frowned. Should we consult legal counsel? This isn't right, this tactic. It must violate our agreement. We can address that later, I said. Right now, I want to leave. What? Elara asked. We just moved in. I'm asking you to trust me, I pleaded, still breathing rapidly. Do you? Of course, Kael, but you're making me nervous. Elara shivered. What did they say? It was their tone, Elara. The way they spoke of the consequence. It was unsettling. I think we should leave, I urged. I anticipated resistance, expected her to dismiss my concerns, to say we couldn't simply abandon our new home based on a disturbing conversation. If there were any other reason for my apprehension, I would have agreed. We should stand our ground, consult legal professionals, express mirth freely in our own home, in defiance of the community's odd custom. But I believed the voice on the phone, and Elara clearly believed me. Okay, Elara nodded. I'll get the jacket for Lyra, then we'll go to the motel. But tomorrow we address this. I offered a weak smile. Thank you, love. What are you two doing up there? Did you get lost on the way to the closet? Lyra's voice called from below, followed by a light chuckle. Ouch, Elara gasped. My fingers had tightened involuntarily around Elara's arm, but I immediately released her. My gaze darted to the window, observing the darkening sky. A sliver of light remained. I felt a desperate, unfamiliar urge to pray. Pray that Lyra had expressed that mirth before twilight. Kael? Elara whispered, her lip trembling. Would you consider it dark? Outside? I asked, my voice strained. Elara slowly turned her head to the window, then back to me, her eyes wide with apprehension. It'll be all right, she said, her voice wavering. Lyra didn't know about the custom. We'll receive a reprimand. There was nothing about it in the covenants. But the fear in Elara's eyes mirrored my own. We both felt it, a sense of foreboding, a subtle shift in the atmosphere. I'd felt it the day before while unloading our belongings. The sensation of something unseen within Serenity Glade, an observer, a listener. Hello? Lyra called again, another light chuckle. Won't they stop? I muttered, clutching at my own hair. Come on, Elara whispered, retrieving a simple jacket. She'll take this, depart, and then we'll leave, okay? I nodded, stepping in front of Elara and taking the jacket. We walked to the landing. I cautiously looked down at Lyra. The the smiling woman, wearing attire similar to Elara's. I was both frustrated and terrified by Lyra's obliviousness. The issue wasn't that Lyra hadn't seen the notice. It was that she clearly didn't perceive what Elara and I perceived. Although we had been pleased on our first day, our new home felt shrouded in a subtle darkness. Something I'd seen reflected in Elara's eyes, and I was certain she had seen it in mine. That took a while, Lyra said with a small laugh. I was wondering if you two were having a private celebration. Now I think you were giving each other fashion advice. Anyway, thank you so much. This will be perfect. Lyra was interrupted. Not by a knock, not by the lights going out, not by any obvious sign I expected. She was interrupted by a sudden choking sound as if something had obstructed her airway. Lyra? Elara gasped, rushing to her side. Elara managed to catch her friend as her legs gave way. Tears welled in Lyra's eyes as she struggled for breath. Elara began performing a first aid maneuver as fluids began to escape Lyra's nose. I braced myself for the terrifying possibility of witnessing a medical emergency. Moments later, with a distinct pop, a stream of fluid erupted from Lyra's throat, and within the expelled matter there was a folded piece of paper. Being the least distressed of the three, I knelt to retrieve the paper. It contained neat lines of text in a small font. After wiping away some of the fluid, 2 sentences became clear. Departure directive. Proceed via the lower level access point. I read the message aloud as Lyra continued to recover, Elara staring at me in disbelief. I repeated the message. Lyra looked equally confused. I understood their reactions. It seemed impossible. We had no explanation for the note's appearance. Lyra hadn't ingested it. It had simply emerged, obstructing her airway. Not to harm her, given the message's second sentence. Proceed via the lower level access point. Proceed via the lower level access point. But we didn't immediately comply. Lyra cried out as she flung the main entrance open. It revealed not the outside, but the kitchen. The back entrance now led to the front area. Windows showed the interiors of other rooms within the house. It was as if the house had folded in on itself, the rooms rearranging like a twisted Rubik's Cube. The window that should have shown the neighbor's house now offered a view directly into our own dining room, where the table was set for a breakfast we would never eat. This applied to all of us. We were trapped in a shifting structure, far removed from the outside world. We had one option. What if we do as it says? If we proceed via the lower level access point? Elara whispered. What's happening? Lyra cried, barely comprehending. I answered shakily. You expressed mirth, Lyra. What are you saying? She asked, tears streaming down her face. How did that appear? We don't understand, Elara whispered, holding her friend's hand. But we have to try the lower level. It's the only option. I swallowed hard, nodding. Lyra sobbed as I led them to the door. It opened, revealing a dark staircase. There was no relief, only a deeper sense of dread. I guided us into the darkness, moving cautiously. Once we reached the lower level, the door above slammed shut. I fumbled for a light switch, but there was none. There was nothing down there. No storage, no utilities. Just an empty, dark space. What now? Lyra asked timidly. I don't know, I replied. We should look for an exit, Elara said. This is the exit, I whispered. That's what the note said. No, Lyra said. Elara agreed. There must be more. No, Lyra repeated more forcefully. Lyra, are you all right? Elara asked, grabbing my arm. Is that you? Yes, I said, taking Elara's hand. I thought you were holding her. I was, Elara said fearfully. Lyra, where are you? No, Lyra sobbed, her voice fading into the darkness. Then came the sound, not a kind sound, not a sound of joy, not even a mocking sound. It was a sound devoid of any positive emotion. It seemed to be a welcome to some terrible place. Lyra seemed to be moving towards it. I reached out into the darkness, trying to find her. Stop, Lyra cried, her voice distant. Why are you? Show yourself. What are? Oh no. What are you? Lyra screamed. Something in the darkness had terrified her. Something Elara and I didn't see. Something I now understand was too terrible to witness. I knew she was gone. Not simply gone from Serenity Glade, but gone from existence. Not entering any peaceful afterlife, but some terrifying eternity. The creaking of wood made me turn. Elara and I had only moved a few steps from the staircase, yet it was now impossibly far behind us. The open door at the top of the stairs, casting light from the main level, was the only visible thing in the darkness that had consumed Lyra. The darkness that threatened to consume us as well. "Run!" I yelled, pulling Elara behind me. As we ran, I felt something more tangible in the darkness. A manifestation of the dread that had been creeping into my mind. A cold, oily presence that seemed to listen to our every breath. Lyra whimpered incoherently from a place both near and impossibly far. It's Kael, Elara cried as we reached the stairs. "We have to go," I ordered, pushing her onto the first step. "Please, Kael," she begged. "There has to be a way to help her." I turned back for a moment and felt a searing pain in my mind. The dread had fully arrived, crushing any remaining hope. The darkness brought not suffering itself, but the anticipation of suffering. A warning from whatever lurked in the depths of that lower level. Whatever being beyond human comprehension enforced the custom. Elara and I had observed the custom. Lyra had not. It was that simple. But we were being offered safe passage. We were on the stairs, close to escape. Yet, I hesitated. I considered Elara's words. There had to be a way. In this place that defied spatial laws, I still felt Lyra's presence. Heard her cries, as faint as they were. The place was a deception. She might have been just steps away. I thought I could do something. But the observer read my thoughts. Read my intention to return to the darkness. A hand reached out from the void. It didn't belong to Lyra. It was skeletal, with 6 elongated fingers covered in tattered remnants of gray material. It wasn't skin. Just as the hand wasn't a hand. It was something that didn't belong to any living thing. And I knew it didn't even belong to the observer. It was a tool, used to deliver a message. If I had seen even a glimpse of the observer's true form, I would have been broken like Lyra. Whatever enforced the custom in Serenity Glade, it didn't originate from this world, and it didn't take Lyra to any earthly place. I screamed, recoiling from the reaching fingers. Perhaps by returning to the darkness I would have faced a similar fate, but I didn't find out. I narrowly avoided the hand and followed Elara up the stairs, slamming the door behind us. We ran to the main entrance and she pushed it open, revealing our porch, our driveway. We didn't stop to gather belongings. We didn't hesitate. We got into the vehicle and drove away from Serenity Glade, vowing never to return. Even in broad daylight, I wouldn't risk even a quiet chuckle within its boundaries. There are things worse than material possessions, worse than death. I only glimpse those things and I pray I never see them again. I have a terrible wish, in truth. I wish Lyra had ceased to exist before seeing what she saw. And there we conclude our harrowing journey into the Gloaming, a story that delves into the chilling consequences of breaking ancient rules and confronting entities from beyond our world. What happens when the very fabric of reality twists and contorts around us? How do we escape a horror that targets not our bodies but our very capacity for joy? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. If this tale has left you with a lingering sense of dread, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and activate the notification bell to join us on future journeys into the darkness. This is the Midnight Narrator, signing off. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most terrifying sounds are the ones we suppress, and the most dangerous places are the ones that promise perfect peace.